So until I was 12, I thought I had a pretty typical childhood. I grew up with my mom and dad and my sister. I have a younger sister. And we grew up in New Westminster. I thought I was just like other kids, except maybe more clumsy and uncoordinated, not very good at sports. I didn't realize until I was 12 that I have a degenerative eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, and that my vision was basically gradually deteriorating throughout my whole life. So one night at dinner, my parents kind of, I always say, dropped the bomb, I guess. I don't know what made that particular day the day that they were going to tell me, but I remember them saying, "You have retinitis pigmentosa." My dad made a joke about, bet you can't say that 3 times fast. And our kitchen table was like a nook, and my spot was in the back. And so I couldn't really run away in the moment. I held it together, and then when dinner was over, I went to my room, and yeah, I cried. I didn't know what that would mean. Will I have a job? Will I get married? Will I be able to have kids? I just had so many questions.
I love this picture because I'm pretty sure Shawn's kissing my brother Ben and Jen's kissing me, and this is Shawn and Jen's house as a kid.
As a kid, we didn't really realize she was losing her sight. She always wore glasses and they were pretty thick, but we didn't really know any differently. The first time I do remember her sight being an issue, we had all gone to the park, like our parents and my brother and I and her and her sister, and we were playing near the water. And I remember her parents being very concerned that she was close to the water, but we were all close to the water. And I remember talking to my mom in the car on the way home saying, how come Auntie was so worried? Like we were all there, and she was only yelling at Shawn. That was like the first time I noticed her being treated differently because of her sight in our family. I think they knew for a long time that she was going to lose her sight, but they chose not to tell her until she was older. Every summer we would go camping as a whole family up to our cabin at Green Lake, and Shawn would always love to read books. She would always be into a book. But that particular summer, after she found out she was going to lose her sight, she read the whole camping trip for 3 or 4 days straight. She pretty much only put a book down to eat and like go in the lake for a little bit, but she was really wanting to get every last bit of her being able to read a book while she could still see. I think that was something that made her really frustrated and sad, that she could always lose herself in a book and love reading, and that was something that was going to be much more difficult.
I try to move my body every day for at least half an hour. That's the goal. It doesn't really matter how I do it, as long as I get my heart rate up, and it's really one of the ways that I relieve my stress.
She works like a lot. Like she goes upstairs and I don't see her. Like she pops down for lunch and then she goes back up, and maybe depending whether I'm home, she'll pop in for a tea or.
Sorry.
So she seems to be working more from like the remotely, like in the nights too, compared to before. I don't know. What do you think?
We have way more programs now that are like twice a month, like 3 different programs that run every other week. which it's a
Meeting
lot.
tonight, right?
Yeah, 4 nights this week.
Well, I used to harp on her, but no, she's busy, so right.
I'm just trying to change the world. I remember being a teenager and having a conversation with my parents about what sort of job I would be able to do. And they suggested piano teacher because I could play the piano. They suggested maybe you could be a court reporter because you can type really fast. It was always a conversation of what I would be able to do without vision and not so much what do you want to do. Well, I guess when I was young, I wasn't sure what I would be able to do either. Morning. Morning. And I was really afraid of not being able to contribute. I guess the biggest fear was of being a burden. I just did not want to be a burden to anybody.
My name is Harjinder Saran. I go by Ginny. I have a condition called bilateral microphthalmia, and that means that when I was born, my eyes were really small for me, so they had to my left one had to be removed, and my right one had to be partially removed, so I wear prosthetic eyes. Growing up blind was definitely interesting. You know, as a kid, you're very active and you want to release all that energy. And I think the adults in my life at the time were very cautious of that. And I didn't really have that many opportunities to kind of jump around on the playground, you know, do track and field with my elementary kids. I didn't really have that experience. I always sat on the side. But then when I first joined Blind Beginnings, a project came up called Do the Grind Blind Challenge in 2017. We had blind or partially sighted youth train for 4 months to climb the grouse grind. And I remember after the first training hike, when I came in 2 hours late after everybody else, I was ready to tell Shawn that I don't want to do it. Somehow I stuck around and I don't know why, and then by the end of it, I was one of the first people up. And I think that kind of showed to me that, again, it's not that I can't do PE, play sports, or participate in physical activities, it's just that that's what I've always been told, and of course if I haven't done it, that's why I'm slower at it. You know, that was, not only did society get to see that, but it helped me personally learn that I am able to do things like that. Also, seeing Shawn as a parent was very, very jarring in a good way, because I never imagined myself not only as an adult, but as someone who could have kids. And I remember having that connection with someone who is also blind, but who is older and who has gone through it, and you can see them as a role model, was completely changing.
The journey from grief to acceptance is bumpy. I think there are many factors that contribute to accepting a loss of any kind, whether that's a disability or anything that you unexpectedly are grieving. I think the first big step on my journey to acceptance was making the decision to travel to England to work at the School for the Blind. I was 25 years old. I had finished my first degree and I was working in a part-time job that paid minimum wage, not loving it, and there was this opportunity that was terrifying, but I needed something more. My job in England was a learning support assistant, so I was assisting in the classroom at a school for the blind, and I was working with kids ranging in age from probably 9 to 17, and it was so amazing. I'd never been to a school for the blind, and They put on plays. And as, you know, the only visually impaired student in my school, I was definitely not going to be the star in the school play, but of course these kids were, because all the kids were blind. So I just really saw their talents. They were able to shine in a way that I don't think I was able to when I was going to school. And then when I came back from England, I knew that I really wanted to work with children and youth who were blind. I fell in love with those kids, and I saw their gifts, I saw their strengths, I saw their personalities and their talents. And I didn't care that they were blind. It didn't make them less than at all. And I started to think, like, if I can love them, why can't I love myself? Why do I see this as such a deficit in myself? I had no idea it was going to change my life in so many ways, but it was really the introduction to my personal journey as well as my professional purpose, I guess.
This is a pretty busy street near our house that we've practiced crossing a lot. There's lots of cars, there's a stoplight, there's a button you have to press to cross the street. So we've just been working with Alina on all the skills of learning how to cross a street like this. She's able to cross this street on her own. She'll be able to manage a lot of things.
My name is Alina Rochelle Valente. I am 8 years old, going to be 8.5 on May 11th.
Alina is completely blind. She has no light perception, and she became blind as a result of a brain tumor that she had as a baby. Being Alina's mom is a delight in many ways. She is so loving, thoughtful, smart, interesting. Yeah, I'd want to be friends with her even if she wasn't my kid, so yeah, she's great.
So are you.
So we first found out about Alina's vision loss when she got very sick. She was about 1.5 years. It was actually discovered that she had a fairly large brain tumor that was located on her optic nerve, and she was actually already losing quite a bit of her vision at that point. And then she had a surgery to take out some of her tumor, which basically took away the remaining vision that she had. So when that all happened kind of all at once, it was a shock. It was a double shock because, you know, you're dealing with your kid being very, very sick, which is really, really scary. And then on top of that, you find out that they have this very challenging disability, that they've lost their vision. And it was just something really unfamiliar to us and very, very scary on multiple levels.
The thing is right over here. And got it. This is my Blind Beginnings tennis medal, and I won it because I was the youngest blind tennis player in Canada. I was 5 or 6, I forget. Yeah, 6, I think so.
When we first met Shawn, it was very cool because honestly, we didn't know anyone that was blind before our daughter became blind. And so to have your first experience meeting someone who is blind is this person who is just amazingly accomplished, put together, like runs her own organization. It was so wonderful, right? Because you're wondering all these things about what is my kid's future going to be? What's an option for them? What are the opportunities? And then you meet somebody that has accomplished so much and taken advantage of so much in life, and you're like, okay, well, possibilities are limitless. That's totally something that Blind Beginnings has instilled in us as parents and in our child through the activities and the programs that we go to. So I think that has just been the huge difference for us over the past few years.
Okay, gonna set this entire... Oh, wait! Cat. Okay, so there, this is done.
Wow.
Meow. I'm a magnetic maniac. These have magnetic rods in them, so they are very unstable.
Got it.
And I'm wanting to be an architect, so I gotta practice this sort of thing.
I really appreciate that Blind Beginnings does get the siblings involved as well, because I think there is an aspect of kids that have special needs getting special treatment, which is well-deserved. But you also want the other kids in the family to feel like they're getting included. So I think that's a wonderful aspect of the programs. And also I think that more generally, when we get everyone involved in these activities, we don't have to separate people out because of their difference.
As I was sort of adjusting to my visual impairment, I really wanted to find something that I was the best at. And when I was 18, I kind of figured out that there was blind sports. There were sports that blind people could compete in. And I started swimming competitively, and that's when I really decided I wanted to compete at the Paralympics. Turns out I didn't make the Paralympic team with swimming. Took me many years and a couple of sports, but eventually I was able to get to the Paralympics and compete in tandem cycling. I competed in Athens in 2004. It was a dream come true. So for me, it was just like, wow, I'm finally here. I've accomplished this goal that I'd really been working towards for about 11 years. So it was a big deal. Yeah, so in tandem cycling, the person in the front of the bike is sighted. They're the ones that steer, they shift, they kind of make the decisions. In a road race, it's really strategic, so they decide whether to go with an attack or when to attack. And we're both pedaling, so our feet are in sync, we're pedaling together, and we just need to communicate really well. Competing at the Paralympics, it was one of the first places that I didn't feel shame that I had a disability. It was pride. It was, look at all of us. We have overcome a lot of obstacles and are here trying to be the best that we can be. So that was a really empowering moment for me as well. It's a journey, and it takes as long as it takes, and for some people, it takes a long time. For me, it did. It took decades, really. Others maybe not so long, and I think it depends what support you have along the way. And I guess that's part of Blind Beginnings, is hopefully I can offer that support that I didn't have so that I can get people through that journey a little quicker.
What word are you working on that you're dividing into syllables?
Missing.
Missing. Miss-ing. How would you separate that into syllables? Do you think?
M-I-S-S space I-N-G.
Yeah, that
and
works.
then put...
Nicholas is 7 years old, grade 2. Awesome kid. He's very outgoing, happy, likes to put on a show. We got off.
We're so lucky.
Really lucky, because he's eats everything. Shawn always has to remind me, he's only 7. It's like yeah, because he does everything. He's just so good most of the time.
I don't know. It always amazes me, like he's just sensitive to how other people might be feeling. And I love that about him. And I think seeing me struggle sometimes or whatever has shown him that.
So being an entrepreneur and having a family is probably the hardest because I love my job probably almost as much as I love my family. Blind Beginnings was my baby before I had a baby, so it means so much to me, and no matter what I'm doing, I always feel a little bit guilty for not being on the other side. So when I'm working, I feel guilty that I'm not with my kid, and when I'm with my kid, sometimes I'm thinking about what I'm supposed to do at work. So yeah, that is definitely so hard.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Shawn. How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Good. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see you in person.
Thank you.
Running a business is like trying to hold a lot of balls in the air at the same time. What I imagine juggling would be like. Yeah, so quitting my job to start Blind Beginnings was another time when I definitely needed some serious courage. I didn't know what I was doing. I literally Googled each step of the way what I needed to do. People told me I was crazy, but I just felt it was worth the risk. I was gonna take this leap and hopefully it would create something great. We are 12 years old now, probably supporting maybe 300 families across BC. And we do that through a range of workshops, support groups, counseling, and really just kind of building a community and demonstrating the capabilities of people who are blind. 4 full-time staff, and some part-time contractors. Like, we're a real grown-up, real organization. So in that way, it's amazing, starting from just me working from home in my apartment. I guess my hope is that every child walks away from Blind Beginnings believing that they are perfect just the way they are, that they don't need to be something different. And when I see that, when I feel like, I don't know, that shift in self-esteem, that like embracing your disability and recognizing that it doesn't make you less than, it makes you different, and in some ways maybe even more interesting. I think that's what I hope for every child that I work with, for every family.
I'm always surprised at what Shawn is capable of, but I'm not surprised that it's a success, because she knew that there's this huge gap. There's this huge gap, and she was lost in that gap, and she knew families needed her, and she knew that there needed to be something more for them. And she didn't stop until she made it happen.
If I could give advice to my 12-year-old self, I would say, you are fine just the way you are. It's okay to be blind, and you're gonna do amazing things. I'm Shawn Marcellet. Life through my eyes is beautiful.
I'll dance out in the rain with or without your permission.